Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. I'm Sheila Baker, and it's my pleasure to present to you today. I just to introduce myself, and feel free to introduce yourself in the chat. I actually live in Toronto, Canada, but sometimes you can also find me in Europe. And it would be great to see where you're located. So please feel free to say hi. Um, in the chat and where you're located. Thank you. So just a little bit about myself. I've been a teacher, for about 120 years, or it feels like that sometimes. Actually, I've been teaching for over 25 years, which includes teacher training, ESL, and anything related to teaching English as a second language. I've taught students from all over the world, countries like Brazil, Peru, Venezuela, Mexico, Egypt, Saudi Arabia, Pakistan, lots of students from China, Vietnam, Korea, India, Italy, Ukraine, Switzerland, Hungary. I see we got somebody from Hungary. Nice. Spain, Somalia. You get the picture. So please, if you're just joining us, write in the comments where you're joining us from. And feel free to ask any questions you have as I go through the presentation. And I'll do my best to answer them during the second half of the webinar. So welcome everyone. Good morning to you. Good afternoon, good evening, depending where you are, wherever you may be. So today's topic, as you can see, we'll be talking about teaching writing today, which is unfortunately sometimes a neglected skill in the EFL classroom. And we'll see if we can change that. So let's take a look at our first slide. So some people assume that if you speak a language, that means you can write it effectively. Is that true? No, not necessarily. Because writing is a completely different set of skill. It's a skill in its own right. So let's look at the differences between spoken and written English. So writing is obviously not as spontaneous as speaking. It can be planned, drafted, changed, edited. So there's a lot of room for correction, thinking what you're going to put on the paper, and then revision, organization, editing, changing, shifting things around, especially if you do it in a digital form. At the same time, there's nowhere to hide, right? Because everything is shown. Your spelling, punctuation, grammar, what vocabulary you use, how you organize your ideas, it's all on permanent display. So I've got good news and bad news for you. Which one would you like to hear first? Usually people want to hear the bad news first. So let me share that with you. There's lots of time to write. That's the bad news because sometimes people think, "Oh, I've got time," and then they get a writer's block. So we'll talk about how to overcome that. And would you like to hear the good news? The good news is there's lots of time to write. So this means you have time to think about your ideas, develop them fully, and then edit them at the end, which is also important. I know. I knew you wanted to hear the bad news first. Thank you. All right. So let's take a look at the actual writing process and the stages in that. So it is a complex process. It's not always easy to put your ideas down on paper, but we can look at the steps and just follow them. And students may already know the steps. They might be familiar with that in their first language. They already got the background knowledge, perhaps life experience. But the trick is to tap into the students' knowledge in writing, in what they know about how to write in their own language. We want to tap into that, and we want to encourage them to follow the same process that they would follow in their first language. Should we provide model texts? Absolutely. I do it all the time, stating, yes, this is just an example. It doesn't mean yours has to be like that, but this helps them generate ideas. Oh, yeah, the organization can be done that way. You can you can look at connectors, sentence structures, what vocabulary is used, how the ideas are developed and supported, where the examples are included. How to write a good thesis statement in the introductory paragraph. What if you teach students to write a paragraph? How to write a good topic sentence. Same idea. Brainstorming. Now, this is when you just generate ideas. You're just trying to come up with ideas. And at this point, you want to let students know that there's no such thing as a bad idea. Every idea you come up with is a good idea. So you write them down, and then once you've generated some good ideas, then you can be selective. You don't have to include everything in your writing, but then you can pick the ones that are good ideas, and then you can group them together. So that really helps. And then that helps with the planning process. And now we are able to write a draft, the first draft. And then it's important to rewrite it, to work on it, proofread it, to keep improving it until you say, okay, this is done. I'm washing my hands. This is it. So important to prepare students for writing. Don't just throw them under the bus or throw them in deep end of the pool and there you go, swim. No, no, we wanna get them ready. And in real life, we usually react some kind of a piece of writing, like you are perhaps answering an email or replying to an invitation or perhaps writing a letter to somebody. So peer interaction is great for this. Take advantage of that. You don't want to be doing all the reading and the editing. Get the students to help each other. They can swap their work and then they can comment because usually when you read something, you have a reaction, right? So you can respond, ask students to respond to the writing and also give feedback to the students and also teach how to give good peer feedback. Also notice the good, not just what to improve. And this will help them improve over time. I used to teach, pardon me, not teach, I used to correct all the mistakes. And then people kept repeating the same mistakes over and over and over again. So I kind of got tired of that. I said, that's it. I'm not correcting your mistakes anymore. So what I did, I just indicated there is an issue here with a preposition, for example, and I got the students to make the correction. And then, yes, they had to hand in their paper again. So it takes more work initially, but eventually it pays off because students actually learn to correct their own mistakes and the mistakes of others. So you don't have to spend so much time correcting the article mistakes again and again and again because over time it gets better. So that would be my advice, to let the students correct their mistake, but indicate it. Either a peer can indicate it, a person whose English is better, or you yourself as the teacher can indicate where the issues are. So let's take a look at the specific stages in a writing lesson. So we still want to have some kind of warmer to establish context. For example, if you want the students to write an email for a job application, the warmer could be coming up with qualities that employees are looking for. anything that gets the students thinking about the topic would be a good warmer. It has to be connected to the writing. As we talked about, it's a good idea to provide models and then get students to analyze them, look to see what register or style is being used. Is it formal, semi-formal, informal? Look at the structure, the connectors. Did they answer the question fully? Did they explore the ideas? Did they include specific examples? This is where I see a lot of room for improvement. They do include examples, but they're kind of general. We need specific examples to fully support an idea. And once you have analyzed that, yeah, did they answer the question? The connectors, coherence, is there a good flow? Is it logical? What we said in the beginning as a position, is it still supported at the end and by the body paragraphs? And then you look at the use of vocabulary. What kind of words do they use? Does it fit the context or does it sound artificial? Word forms. Do we have nouns or verbs where they're needed, or are they mixed up? The use of plurals, for example, spelling, and just the level of vocabulary that is used, and then grammar, of course, is also included. The use of verb tenses, punctuation, things like that. Now, should we pre-teach vocabulary and some grammatical structures? Absolutely. It really helps because then that provides students with the words that they can use. They don't have to use all the words, but at least they have some words to use. And for example, if you're telling a story, what verb tense would you most likely use? If you said past tense, that would be correct. Or as long as you indicate that this was in the past, everything can also be in the present, in the simple present. So either the past, you need to know, or the present. All right. So it's important to go through these steps: brainstorming, planning out your writing. And at the same time, it's important not to spend too much time on vocab and grammar because we don't want this to turn into a grammar lesson. Ultimately, the focus should be on writing. And once the students are fully prepped, then give them a meaningful task. So meaningful, we'll talk about this, how to do that later. I will give you an example. It's a good idea to give a word count so students kind of know what the expectations are. For example, on a test, if you write a letter, 150 words. If you write an essay, it's 250 words. This is kind of a good gauge, for example, for the IELTS exam. And of course, you want to set a time limit so that that's part of the challenge. How much can you get done in the given time? And then allow for peer interaction and correction so that they can work together if needed, because they can really help each other a lot. At the same time, you as a teacher, you don't want to interfere too much, right? Because then they kind of feel inhibited and more self-conscious. So only interfere if you see like a major problem. Let's say they misunderstood the prompt, the question. Then yes, you would want to ask them, let's look at the question. Are you answering the question? Making sure that they do answer the question and it's not misunderstood. So only if it's a major problem that you see. Let's say they're supposed to write a letter and they're using essay format, which would not be acceptable in that case. So you would want to remind them to use a letter format. And then it's good to take it in to mark and keep it safe. Don't lose it. One of my colleagues at the university, it was final exam time, and he lived close to a bus station. So he was waiting for the bus, and he put his briefcase right by the bus stop, and he had all the files for the students to give back. It was a final exam time. He said, "Oh, the bus isn't here yet. Let me just shovel my driveway." So he did that. So by the time he got back to the bus station, the briefcase was stolen with all the students' papers. So it was all gone. He never got it back. So what would you do? He just based their marks based on the midterm because he couldn't do anything else. Students were disappointed, but yeah, good to keep them safe and try not to get coffee marks, coffee stains on them. And then correcting students' work. Have a correction code if possible. I usually give that at the beginning of the semester to my students, and then they will know. SP, oh, it's a spelling mistake. VT is verb tense. WC, word choice. WF, word form, so that they know. And then I don't have to keep writing it out every time. It really speeds up the process. So I have this for them to give at the beginning of the semester, and we just go from there. Avoid red pen. Yes, because when students get their paper back, and let's say it's all red, the students will say, "Teacher, my paper is bleeding." Yeah, I know. So it's better to use another color. In the UK, do you guys know what color they use? If you said green, you are correct. So just stay away from red. Yeah, you can make it stand out, or if you do it digitally, I actually use the review function in Microsoft Word, and that indicates that a change has been made, and then they can easily see where they need to make the corrections. And remember not to just point out the bad, but also mention some of the good points too, because we still want to build up our students and encourage them, right? We don't want to destroy their confidence. We want to encourage them. So I also point out, oh, that's a nice metaphor you used there. That's a good illustration. I like the how you reasoned here, your reasoning. That's a beautiful introduction. The way you summarized your essay is really good. So something positive is important. And at the end, it's also good to give feedback to the entire group because if somebody has an issue with subject verb agreement, let's say, probably there's another student too that has the same issue. So they can all benefit without really mentioning any names. And the people, they will know if they have made that mistake. So I just tell them if you see a quote from your essay, that means you're famous. So they kind of chuckle about that. Now, remember we talked about making it meaningful. So let's dig deeper into what that means. So students must write for a purpose. It's either you want to inform the reader, you want to persuade or convince them to do something, or your point of view. It could be just to entertain, right? If you are reading a piece of writing that is humorous or a satire, it could be to explore the pros and cons and then say which one is better to keep animals in zoos or keep them just in the wild, for example, which we do all the time in everyday life, if you think about it. We make decisions all the time based on pros and cons. And it's actually a good idea to make a list for yourself, even if you make a decision. And if you see the pros are a lot longer than the cons, then you know what to do. But when you put it down on writing, then it kind of crystallizes your thinking about that idea. And then it's really clear makes it really clear what you think about it. So it's actually good. They actually did a study on this for people who set goals, and half the people they just thought about it, the other half they wrote it down, and they had a month to achieve it. And within 2 weeks, the people who wrote them down, not only did they do better, but they almost achieved all of those goals that they set for the months just within the 2 weeks because they wrote it down, whereas the other group did not do so well. So writing is good for us too, actually. And then context. Context is also important. So you have to let the students know what the situation is. Is it a job application? Is it trying to persuade someone to do something? So we need to have that. And important to know who their audience is, even if it's a fictitious one, because then the students again can know, oh, okay, I'm writing to a manager, so the tone should be formal. I'm writing to my cousin, so it's going to be informal. If it's to a landlord, what would you say? Kind of know the person, but he's not your best buddy. So it's semi formal tone would be good. All right, now let's see an example of a bad task. Here it is. Write 10 sentences about your house. Why is this not effective? Well, there's no real purpose. We don't know why we're writing about my house. There's no context established. We don't know who the audience is. And it's kind of boring, isn't it? It's not motivating at all. You don't really feel inspired. Yeah. So let's see if we can make this better. What would we do to make it better? Let's see. You decide to advertise your house on Airbnb. So write an ad trying to persuade strangers to rent it. Describe the location, the decor, what rooms are available, any facilities. So, or read the example. And it's also good to read an example of an ad and the handout for inspiration and write 100 words. So now it has become a lot more meaningful. Why? We know the purpose, why we're writing it. We have context. It's an Airbnb ad. We have an audience. It's the strangers who will potentially rent this accommodation from us, and we have a word limit as well. So better, right? And you feel more inspired to do it as well. And at the same time, I would like to share my screen and let me know what you think this is. Put it in the chat. It is. It's an actual Airbnb ad talking about strangers are not actually strangers, right? So it encourages you to invite those strangers to stay in your house temporarily. Yeah, very good. You got it. So you can even use that as a prompt to inspire students to kind of generate ideas. I have done that. So you want to engage the students. You want to have a communicative purpose. We have real life application. We have context. The genre is given. We have an audience. Those people who potentially read the ad and possibly come. And it's good to provide a model for guidance and a text word count. All right. Let's see the different types of writing that we can easily contextualize. So could be a greeting card, some kind of presentation, sending a postcard, a note to a friend or a family member. We often do that. A small ad, essay, or book or movie review, which can be a critical review, whether you have liked it or not, whether you would recommend it, etc. So you get some ideas, and then further on that, it could be a story or a play. Short stories, especially, students enjoy them. Of course, again, you provide some examples first, and then they write their own short stories, which is part of the curriculum, actually, of high school curriculum. Text messages, filling out application forms. If you're teaching LINC in Canada, language instructions for newcomers to Canada, it's part of the curriculum. Emails, we do it every day, and some students do not know how to write a good email. So it's really a really important life skill. And of course, letters, application, you're not happy with a product, complaining. And then you can also get students to write something humorous, like wishing a happy birthday to a colleague or something funny they have shared recently. All right, so this takes us to our Q&A session, question and answer period. So that's all that I wanted to share with you for the moment. And now it's over to you to type in your questions in the chat box. And just please keep the questions relevant to our topic of teaching writing, if possible. And I'll do my best to answer as many as I can. Some of you asked why avoid red pen. Yeah, and some of you have answered it. Thank you. It does look like blood, and it's negative, right? When you see red, it means stop. It doesn't look very encouraging. That's right. Yeah, and Tracy said, yeah, sometimes doesn't make much of a difference for some students, but for some it does. So that's why I just recommend staying away from that. All right, let's see what else we have here. What age would you recommend to give writing tasks? That's a good question. As long as students can write, you can write it at any age. Basically, you can just start with words and then go to phrases, sentences, and then eventually a paragraph. How to write a good paragraph. And once they're able to do that, then you can move on to short essays, longer essays, research papers, and eventually a PhD thesis. Yeah. And just a note on research papers, if you end up teaching EAP, English for academic purposes, then you would also have to teach a formatting style, such as APA. This is fairly common, which stands for the American Psychological Association, because that was the body that established a formatting style. or MLA. There's Chicago style, there's Vancouver style, there's different styles, but you might have to teach one so that students know how to format it, the paper itself and the references at the end. Good question. Thank you, Caldor. Is this writing process effective for younger children too? Yes, it is, but then you would keep it shorter, right? The actual piece of writing would be shorter. The lead up to it, the prep work would be shorter, and of course, the topic would be more appropriate. Like describe your bedroom, for example. You can do descriptive writing, or your favorite animal. What is your favorite color? Why? So things like that. So you want to keep those responses shorter. And then at that point, again, you focus on sentences and then short paragraphs. And when you write short paragraphs, you want to have how many main ideas? Is one enough? No. You want to have 2 or 3 main ideas at least. A topic sentence, 2 or 3 main ideas, examples, and a concluding sentence. So you want to teach that structure when you are teaching how to write a good paragraph. Okay, and again, those examples need to be quite specific. And when it comes to essay writing, I would like to share a website with you. This one, the IELTS Up website. And the reason why I like it because it has samples in it, like immigration. What are the reasons? What consequences? And then it gives you the breakdown, what to put in the introduction. So the topic has to be paraphrased and then make sure to include your opinion. Because in some cultures, they only put the opinion in the conclusion. In English, students are encouraged to put it right in the beginning to be very straightforward. And that way, your opinion is clear throughout the writing. So it's not just in the conclusion, it's not just in the body paragraph, but it's already stated in the introduction. There are no surprises. And then you develop your point, and the recommendation is to have at least 2 body paragraphs. If you have more ideas and more time, yeah, you can go for 3, 4, or 5, but at least you want to have 2. And then at the end, you want to summarize it. So the best thing I heard to explain this in the introduction, say what you're going to say. In the body, say it. And in the conclusion, say what you have said. That's the best way I've heard it summed up. And then we talked about the various styles, the words and structures. So here is some useful phrases that you can teach to your students depending on what you are saying, like on the whole, if you want to generalize something. And for example, we can see this. Yeah. For conclusion, this is my favorite in conclusion because that's very clear. But again, we can use some of the others as well. The only thing students tend to do, they tend to put finally here. Is that a good conclusion? No, because finally would be your last main point. So it should not be finally. So you can also tell them what not to do. And another reason why I like it, this website, because it gives you the different ways to develop an essay, like how to present an opinion, like violence in media, for example. And again, it gives you an example, violence on TV and computer games. It's damaging, it has a damaging effect on society. Others deny that these factors have any significant influence on pupils' behavior. What's your opinion? And then I also teach students to analyze the prompt, because this is again a common mistake I see. They read the question and they start writing right away. No, let's analyze it. So, what's the topic here? If you look at violence on TV and in computer games, what's the controlling idea? It says that it has a damaging effect on the society, right? So this says that it's negative on society, right? So focus on society. Others say that it doesn't have any significant influence, right? So violence. The question is it negative on society or it has no effect? Of course, we're not going to say it's positive. It doesn't say that. It just says no influence. So this again is a mistake that I see. People will say, no, it's negative. Others will say it's positive. No, it doesn't say positive. It just says no effect, no influence, right? So that's why we have to read it carefully. And then when your opinion is there, you need to develop that. And again, most people will say yes, it's damaging, but we have to say something about no effect. Otherwise, we haven't fully answered the question. And then it has a breakdown of the essay. The introduction has the body paragraphs, and notice the finally still one of the body paragraphs. And then there's the conclusion. Apparently, it has no effect, according to this person. And you as a teacher, you don't have to agree with this opinion. As long as it's supported and fully developed, this person can still get a good mark. What I see here, however, is that these body paragraphs are not well balanced. Like this last one is really short. They were probably running out of time, because for this type of essay, they only have 30 minutes to write this essay. So that's what's probably happening. So it would have been better just to have 2 body paragraphs and fully develop them. Now, do we have examples? Yeah, I see that they talk about here, person's character and education. Again, yeah, there are some examples, but again, it's too general. It has to be more specific. Virtual reality, that's a nice phrase. Again, this is very common. I don't see a very specific example here that's missing. So it's not fully explored, but it's a pretty good overall. It's a pretty good answer. Usually this is 250 words, so that's a good word count right there. So got to take these things into consideration. And then we got suggesting a solution, working students. Is it good idea, and what's a solution? Death penalty, pros and cons. Cause and solution, loss of biodiversity. Obesity, causes and effects. Salary or job satisfaction? What would you say? Some people say job satisfaction is more important. Do you agree or disagree? And sedentary lifestyle, problems and solutions. So you can see the different types of essays developed here. So I'll put that in the chat for you if you like, and I'll stop sharing. And it always goes back to this view. Oh, let me know if you got it. All right. Let's see. Could you give the website? Oh, yeah. Okay, yeah, you got it. Jürgen? Good. Tracy likes to work in there. Looks like a battlefield at the end. You guys like that topic, right? Yeah. What age would you recommend? Which writing task do you mean, Calder? What were we talking about at that time? Okay, I'll just wait for you to do that. Okay. And it's also important to build trust, right? Not to judge your students. Don't make them feel stupid. Don't criticize them for their mistake. Just be patient. Just be patient with them. Okay. How do you feel about the use of dictionary during writing tasks? It is okay. Yeah. In fact, I recommend for them to use a thesaurus because that one, instead of giving the meaning, it will give you other words for it. Let's say you're looking for the word house, rent a house. What's another word for house? It will say accommodation, apartment, condominium. So it will just give different words for it. And there's a built-in thesaurus in Word. If you right click on the word, it will give you the synonyms. So as long as they don't do it for every second word, it's okay. It's okay to use a dictionary or thesaurus. But again, you don't want them spending too much time on that. And in an exam situation, of course, that's not an option. All right. All right. Em asks about focusing on younger grades. I'm curious about the business writing. So I think you meant teaching writing to professionals versus teen students. Yeah, yeah, of course, you want to cater to your students. If you have mostly professionals, then the examples that you use and the tasks that you use will be more appropriate to what they would do, like write a letter, an email to their boss, or responding to customers and clients would be some of the typical things. Whereas teenagers, again, they're going to be interested in other things like a Justin Bieber hairstyle. Is that still popular today? So your topics will be different. And just a note with teenagers, they go through material faster. So you have to prepare more things for them because you kind of have to keep them on their toes. They do like to go through it fast. And yeah, it has to be appropriate to their needs. And in order to write well, what do we need to do? We need to read, right? Because reading makes us better writers because then we have more vocabulary to use, more ideas to pull from. We see different sentence structures. So I definitely encourage students to read. And you can have 4 or 5 pre-selected books to choose from, or you can have the whole class reading the same novel, and um, that way they can respond to that. All right. Thank you for that. Caller ask an opinion-based task. Is it required to explore the part that you don't agree with as well? It you don't have to fully explore it unless the question asks you to do so, but it has to be included, right? So let's say, should we wear uniforms in school or not? So let's say you say we should wear them, but you still need to acknowledge the other side that yes, some people want to express their own styles. There are those people. However, and then you put your side of the story, right? Because then it makes it easier for the reader to accept your opinion because you already acknowledge the other side, right? If you have to fully explore the other side, the question will say discuss both views and give your opinion. Then you have no choice. You have to discuss both views. And some people, what they do is they, in the first body, they put all the things why they should not wear a uniform, and the second body, why they should put a uniform, and then their conclusion. Yes, uniforms are good. But a better way to do that is put half of your first body talking about why they shouldn't, and the other half why they should. And those two ideas need to be related to each other, like a fashion statement and individual style. And then the second body paragraph, again, if you divide it half and half, it makes it a better argument. And whatever you think is your position, put that second. Because if you put it first and then you put the other view second, then your argument gets weaker and weaker. And if you have 3 points to 3 body paragraphs, where would you put the strongest argument? You can start with that, the strongest argument, your medium second, and your weakest argument is at the end. Or you can start with the weakest one, and then the medium in the middle, and the strongest can be at the end. So either the first one is the strongest or number 3, but don't put it in the middle, right? Yeah, if you have 3 paragraphs. Okay, is it okay to ask students to rewrite a part that we believe is not or provide them what are suggested? Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, for sure. Sometimes I don't get them to rewrite the whole paragraph, just the part where it's confusing. The second supporting idea, it's not relevant or it's confusing. Can you redo that part? And I just get them to do that part. Yeah. Or sometimes we do writing workshops where I give them a task and everything is written in the singular form in the present, and they have to put it in the plural and the past. They have to rewrite everything in that case. But then I usually get them to do it with a partner. Or if you assign it as homework, it can be done individually. Another thing that I like to do is have a journal. I ask them to journal. So I just put up a topic. Um, my the cashier gave me an extra $2 back when I was paying with cash. What would you do in that situation? Right. So just ask them like a thought-provoking question. They write about it. And I keep it simple. It's 1 page. If you write 1 page, you get 2 points. If you write half a page, 1 point. If you don't write anything, you get 0. And doesn't matter what they write. They just have to write. I take it in on a Friday. I read it over on the weekend. And I don't correct anything when we do journal writing. And I give it back to them on Monday and I respond to them in writing. And then the next time I take it in, I see their replies because they will reply to me. And I might be their first audience who they're writing to in English. And you would be amazed what some of the students will share with you. And some of them will write more than a page. Not necessary, but they will, because they realize this is a very personalized task and they feel really safe. It's a safe environment for them to express themselves. Another thing you can do, you know how you have to write something and you get a writer's block? You just stare at the blank paper and no ideas are coming. What we do for that, I encourage them to do speed writing. Have you ever heard of speed writing? Just give them a topic and I get them to keep writing for 3 minutes. And they cannot stop, they have to keep writing. And I tell them, don't worry about punctuation or grammar or vocabulary or spelling, just keep writing. You cannot stop. The pencil has to keep moving. And don't go back and correct anything. Just keep writing as it comes to your mind. For example, if you think of your grandma, what comes to your mind? When I think of my grandmother, I think of a very, very kind and generous person. Every time I went to her house, the house smelled like cookies, and there was always something going on, and it was so much fun going there. I cannot think of a more generous person than her. And then it's like almost like a stream of consciousness. And then when you're done, you ask the students to count how many lines did they write in 3 minutes. And some of them will write 3 lines, some of them will write 5 or 10. If it's 9, 10 lines, that's 3 lines per minute. That's really good. And then I asked them to underline any academic words. Did they use any academic words like generous, right? Kind hearted. And I don't tell them that at the beginning. I only tell them after the fact. How many academic words did you use? Underline them and count. And now share with a partner. And then the partner will give them feedback on that. And then I ask if anyone wants to share. I don't force them to share, just ask for volunteer, and they are so happy to share them with you. And the next time we do it again, we do this like at least once a week. And what this does, it shows students that they're capable of writing under pressure. And then the next time we do a writing task, it doesn't take that long for them to get started. So it's a really effective way to build their self-esteem and to encourage them to keep writing. And then you'll see each time we do it, they will write more and more, right? And the word count is easy too, because if you count the number of words, each line has about 10 words. So if you have 6 lines, that's 10 times 6, so it's about 60 words. So it's easy to do the word count too, if you write by hand. If you type them, you can get the computer to count the number of words. And they really enjoy that activity. Yeah, you just have to provide them with a topic. All right, and ask, I wish to have a whole class writing a response together before I set them into groups. Should that be the 2 different days or is it possible? Yeah, you can do it. You can do it on the same day. I would do it on the same day because then it's still fresh in their mind. Yeah, I would do it on the same day. All right, let's see. All right, so speedrunning, great idea. Yeah, give it a try. I think your students will really like it. Already, do we have any other questions? And just before I forget, I also would like you to complete a short survey at the end, and I'll put it in the chat for you so that when you get a chance, if you could do that, that would be awesome. I put it in the chat for you. It will just take a couple of minutes to do so, to tell us how you enjoyed this webinar. Alrighty then. So feel free to ask more questions. We got 6 more minutes. So if you still have time, if you still can stick around, I'm happy to answer them. All right, you're most welcome. Thank you for coming. Do we have any more questions? Okay. Also, I would like to mention that after writing, it's still a good idea to have post-writing activities. Like you can still work with the material. For example, you can ask a peer to summarize a sentence in 1 word, or summarize the essay, whole essay in 1 sentence, or give detailed feedback to your um, partner. And the feedback should be on content, cohesion and coherence, so how logical it is, on vocabulary, and grammar. So those are the four criteria that you want to give students feedback on, and it's good to provide them with a rubric as well. All right, so thank you so much for coming. We enjoyed having each and every one of you here. Thank you all for sharing all your location. Lots from South Africa, Sweden. Wow. We got some from New York, South Africa, England, California, Texas, oh, Canada, hello, Johannesburg, South Africa, India, Iran, Africa, wow, and Pretoria. Okay, wow, what a nice range of viewers. Thank you everyone for sharing your location. Trinidad and Tobago. Oh, the Caribbean. Wow. um, all right, here's another question. Do most schools use British or American English? Just depends on the location, right? Like if you're in North America, most likely you will use American English. If you are in the UK, India, some of the former British colonies, you're most likely to use British English. So just be consistent. Don't mix it up. Just use one or the other. Yeah, that's a good question. And they're both acceptable on exams. They accept both of them as long as they are consistent. Yeah. Another person from Trinidad and Tobago. Wow. Must be nice weather there. South Korea, they use American. Mostly they use American English. And when I say American, I mean North American. Canadian is usually Canada is usually similar to the US. Sometimes we use the British spelling though. We pick and choose. Yes, you're most welcome, Abbas, and everyone else who attended today. We're glad to have you here today. We got 2 more minutes. If you have a question, feel free to ask. And yes, if you could complete the brief survey, that would be much appreciated. All right. When doing a peer review of the essays in rural grades, we have them walk around the musical chairs and use a quick rubric to grade. Is this a good to try with older grades? You can take it with a grain of salt. I have played musical chairs with adult students. They love it. So you'll see. You give it a try. You see how students respond, and if they like it, yeah, go for it. Even adults, they love playing games, but they also like to have a written copy of the rubric if they're older. Yeah, good question. Thank you. All right, so thank you everybody for being here. We enjoyed having you all here, and we wish you all the best. Happy teaching. Enjoy the rest of your day. Take care. Bye, everybody.